Amiga, do you ever feel caught between two worlds? You cherish your cultural background, but sometimes it clashes with the realities of raising a family in modern America. You might feel pressured to fulfill traditional expectations, yet you crave a life that allows you to be your true, authentic self. If you're a Latina mom nodding your head right now, I see you and I get it. Balanced Motherhood is more than your average mommy coaching program. It's a supportive comunidad designed specifically for you. I understand the unique challenges you face navigating between generations and culturas while forging your own path as a mama. Stop feeling like you have to choose between your roots and your future. Balanced Motherhood empowers you to create a life that celebrates your heritage, embraces your motherhood journey, and prioritizes your own happiness. Spots are limited. Don't miss out on this opportunity to connect with a supportive community and create a more balanced life. Visit the link in the show notes to join the waitlist for the next Balanced Motherhood cohort. I can't wait to meet you. Hola, hola, amiga. Welcome back to another episode of the Viva la Mami podcast, where we dive into the intricacies of motherhood and share valuable insights to help redefine motherhood and make your journey a lot smoother. I'm your host, Jessica Cuevas, and this week I decided to do a solo episode because it is the first week of December, and I thought I would talk about the stress and the magic leading up toward Christmas as a mama. I'm sure we can all relate to this. And while this episode may be a venting session in a way, I am going to also share a couple tips on how we can all overcome the mental load of Christmas as mamás. So no te lo pierdas. Welcome to the Viva la Mami podcast. I am your host, Jessica Cuevas. I am a mother of two on a mission to help redefine the meaning of motherhood as a modern Latina mom. Motherhood can be a complex journey, interwoven in two identities that often make us feel ni de aquí ni de allá. Viva la Mami is committed to providing you with knowledge, tools, and support to navigate the challenges and triumphs of motherhood as Latina moms. On the show, we'll be discussing culturally relevant topics that will help inform and empower you in whichever season you are in on your motherhood journey. We'll be joined by Latina moms, experts and professionals who can offer advice, practical tips, relatable stories, and honest conversations. So bring your cafecito as I invite you to be a part of this space as we create comunidad about the exciting and challenging parts of being a mommy. Ahora, vámonos. So today's episode is all about navigating the mental load of the holidays as mamás. As the holiday season approaches, it's so easy for our mental load to skyrocket. And there have been many moments when I have a little bit of resentment towards the holidays, even though the holidays are my favorite time of year. And I never realized the immense amount of work moms do. And it wasn't until I had my kids that it made me realize the magic that moms put in to make sure that their kids are happy. And so as I reflect, when I was little, my parents did so much, but my mom did most of the work. And I remember her planning our outfits. I remember her dressing us up so well for Christmas. I remember all of the little attention to details in the decorations, how we sent the letter to Santa. So for me, are now fond memories of Christmas and the holidays in general. And honestly, if it wasn't for my mom who put in so much effort and attention to detail, I don't think I would have loved the holidays as much as I do. And she was a working mom. She started working full-time when I was I think when I was like 5 years old. And so since then, my mom was working a 9 to 5 job. She commuted for over an hour and a half to downtown Chicago. And even so, she never gave up, and she still instilled this like magic in us during the holidays. And so now that I'm reflecting on this, I want to give that back to my kids, right? But I never realized the hard work it takes, not just to make our kids happy, but also with everything in between, from decorating, from meal planning for the holiday specifically, from making the logistics and planning all of the things that happen leading up to the holidays and then even afterwards. And so sometimes I reflect and I'm like, man, why don't we all call Santa Claus Mommy Claus, right? Like, let's just say what it is. But I also have to understand that we have to give in to make sure that our kids are happy. And so as mamas, we take on the extra load during the holidays. I know that it is a wonderful feeling seeing the joy coming out of our peques' faces during this time of year, but we do so much. And so first things first, we need to acknowledge the mental load. As mamas, we often find ourselves juggling various responsibilities, from buying all the gifts, except for ours, hopefully, from wrapping all of the gifts, to planning the holiday outings to make sure that our nenes are enjoying the holiday season, and then to planning what to feed our children and ourselves. And so the mental load can be overwhelming, but it's essential to recognize it before we can address it. I do hear a lot of moms kind of burning out and feeling this sense of burnout about, oh my gosh, like, oh, back to the holidays. Like, even for me, I feel that I am just overwhelmed about the fact that, I have to do all of the things that relate to the holidays, from making sure that my kids are feeding into the holiday spirit. But it is really hard to enjoy it. It's almost like we put in this pressure to ourselves to try to see who is the best mom out there to really create this magical moment for our kids. And part of this, as millennial moms, we get all the pressure from social media, where we see the perfect reels, the perfect images. And even though they do seem perfect, you just never know the hard work that many of these social media influencers are doing, or perhaps they're getting a lot of help. They're perhaps getting sponsorships from products that some of us cannot afford. And so even though it is very easy for us to compare ourselves, and we end up feeling guilty for not doing as much as we could, as much as we wish, it is very important to just recognize that all of us are in different seasons of life. All of us are in different moments of our lives where we may have to prioritize on some things versus others. And so when it relates to the mental load, we need to recognize that, because managing the mental load during the holiday season can be super challenging, especially as mamas, where we often take on various responsibilities. And this is in addition to the added work that we do in our day-to-day lives. We have to still mother. We have to still do our jobs. We still have to take care of our family. We still have to do the regular routines, the schedules, the mundane responsibilities on top of this added load, and that is the Christmas holiday load. And so I am going to share a couple tips to help you overcome the mental load and how to navigate the holiday madness. And so the first thing that I want to mention is for you to talk about the holiday expectations and needs ahead of time. And this is usually, at least for me, usually during the Thanksgiving weekend, where we often ask our family members, okay, who's going to host Christmas? Who's going to host Noche Buena? And this usually sparks that conversation about, well, I did it last year. Oh, well, I can't. Like, for example, for us right now, we are still living with my parents. And for the past years, we hosted Christmas. And mostly because in 2019, we didn't have kids and it was easy for us to host. But then in 2021, we had our first, Diego. And then last year, I was pregnant and I wanted to host it again. So we were able to do that because we had a bigger home. But now well, first of all, we're living with my parents, so we technically cannot make that decision. But second of all, we will eventually have a smaller home, so it'll be very challenging for us to host. However, even though we won't be able to host, we still want to make this specific dish, or happy to contribute towards the plate setting or el mantel or whatever it is to set up a table for the holidays. And so it is important to set realistic expectations for yourself and for your family members about what everyone is hoping to get out of this holiday season, and to see what needs to get done. This responsibility shouldn't be given to one particular person. And I know that for a lot of mamás or abuelas out there that feel that they need to take on this responsibility, it is very important for us to be mindful that they are also going through this mental load. And I often think about my mom, who will be hosting Christmas. My family will be hosting Christmas. And I'm like, well, now that I'm here, it is my duty and responsibility to also help in any way that I can, whether if it's cleaning or whether if it's cooking a specific meal, or if it's contributing financially, so that way they can make the tamales, for example. And so it's so important to confirm with who is hosting and check in with that host to see if they need anything. If everyone is required to bring in a dish, well, make sure that that dish also becomes realistic for you and your time. One of the things that I have learned is whenever there is a potluck, or whenever, I sign up for a meal to take, it's very important for me to make a very easy one. Even though I'm such a perfectionist that I would love to make a dish that comes out of this Pinterest board of mine, it is very important for me to be mindful that maybe at this current season of life, because I currently have two little ones, a 6-month-old and an almost 3-year-old, where they take up a lot of my time and they're very needy at this time. So perhaps making an elaborate dish won't be realistic for me. So I have to take a couple steps back and perhaps prepare a dish that is going to be a little bit more easy and faster for me to do than if it were a nicer one. Also, if you are on a tight budget, because let's face it, we're currently going through a really immense inflation right now, then set those expectations with your family. If you feel that you cannot afford giving gifts this year, but you have done it in the past, it's okay to tell family, hey, this year we're on a tight budget. We unfortunately cannot give as much as we did this year, or say we cannot give any gifts at all. I know that a lot of times we feel very pressured to give gifts to family members, and I'm saying like the tias, the tios, the primos, the sobrinos, the ahijados, and everyone, really. But if you cannot afford it right now, it is okay. Maybe come up with creative ways. Like, for example, this year, my family, what we're doing is we're pitching in $10. Every adult is going to pitch in $10, and what we're going to do is create games out of it. And so, for example, there's this like saran wrap game where we wrap all of these random trinkets, toys, gift cards, candy, anything that we can think of. We kind of keep wrapping it around, and eventually this ball of saran wrap becomes so big that you can pass it around with all the people. And all you have to do is unwrap the saran wrap ball with one mitten and one hand. So you get to use a mitten with one hand, and you just try to unwrap the ball as fast as you can. And if you get a prize, well, great. You go on to the next person, and the next person gets to do the same thing. So it is a very fun game. And for me, it's all about the traditions. For me, it's all about creating memories with family. And I really didn't realize how expensive things are. De por sí, food is already expensive, but not to mention gifts are super expensive. And family keeps growing. I mean, now I have 2 kids. My parents now have 4 grandkids instead of 2, when my sister had 2 kids. And so how can we set those expectations and be realistic to ourselves to think about and find creative ways to not give as much as we did in the past? And it is okay. But it's very important to set out those expectations from the get-go, because it can be a little awkward if you don't say anything and you don't end up gifting anyone, but then someone ends up giving you a gift. Like, that's kind of awkward. So you may want to talk about it in advance. And for us, again, it's usually during Thanksgiving when we're already at the table and we kind of start planning the holidays around that. You also may want to delegate tasks and ask for help. And so when it comes to really talking about holiday expectations and what your needs are, it is so important to delegate tasks such as decorating or meal prep for the holidays or shopping. For example, like for me, I usually do all the shopping for family members, but I know that this year the expectations are going to be a little different. So I'm going to ask my husband, Alex, to have him buy gifts for his family because he knows them best, instead of me doing it or asking him like, hey, what should I give your mom or whatever. Like, I think even though we want to take on so much, and even though we say, well, I'm already doing the shopping anyway, believe me, it can add up. It can add more time, more thinking, more mental load. You may want to communicate openly about your needs and ask for help whenever necessary. And this can be anywhere from decorating or having your partner sign your kids up for a specific Christmas event. Even though we want to be in control, at the end of the day, we want to be happy as well. We don't want to have this sense of exhaustion because it is the holidays. We don't want to just like nag or complain or making it like a tedious job, because it is important for us to just enjoy our time with family. And if you don't have the capacity right now to plan something, for example, then ask your partner. And if you both come into agreement, fine. If not, it's okay. It's okay to let it go. The second tip that I have for you is to simplify traditions. And trust me, I love the holidays. I love every single aspect about Christmas. I love every single aspect about Noche Buena. And even though it is my favorite time of year, it is important that we recognize that we can't do it all. Okay, I've learned to let some of the holiday things go, and it's okay. It is okay to consider simplifying or modifying holiday traditions to reduce the stress. Again, depending on the current season of life that you are in, you can only have a certain capacity. And so you may want to focus on activities that bring joy to you than adding unnecessary pressure. So for me right now, for the past 2 years now that Diego is a little bit more aware about Christmas, I haven't introduced the elf on the shelf. We do have an elf on the shelf just because in the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to do this. But then I had realized like there is a lot of work put into this. There's a lot of planning. There's just a lot of things that you have to do with this elf on the shelf that I'm like, this isn't for me, at least right now. And even though we have an elf on the shelf and we haven't even named it yet, all what we're doing is literally putting him on a shelf or on something where it's out of Diego's reach and we're not even touching it. It's just there as a way of decoration. Maybe once I do have the capacity in the future, perhaps I might implement this elf on the shelf. But at this moment in my current season of life, I cannot. And again, we get very inspired and we have to have this sense of urgency to do everything that we see through social media. But if that is not your rodeo, I'm giving you permission to not do this. It is okay. Another thing is taking pictures with Santa. Like, it is okay not to do them if you don't want to. Like, for me, I am not doing pictures with Santa until maybe the kids are older. I don't know. But for me, just the fact of putting my kids on a stranger's lap, for me, that is not me. So again, just because that may be the expectation for some doesn't mean that should be the expectation for you and your family. The same thing goes with printing out holiday cards. I usually do this. Like this year, I am sending out holiday cards, but last year I didn't. So it all just depends on the time and if you do want to make that extra effort. There are also so many activities, like holiday activities around at this time of year where it is so overwhelming. Like, even though I do want to create traditions for my kids, they are little right now, so I don't think I am required to do as much. But I just can't imagine for moms who have like older kids. Like, I often think about my sister, Karina, who has a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I'm just like, how does she do it? Because I feel like they're always out and about on like different Christmas adventures during this time of year. And even though she may have the capacity, it is okay if you don't. It is okay if you have the time to do this, but it is not you. It is okay. Maybe let the tia take your kids out, or, you may want to assign your partner to do something with the kids. It is okay for you to rest. And so if you are not interested in doing any of these Christmas activities as much, that is okay. For us, we don't want to do as much because it is overwhelming and it is already overstimulating for small kids. Like for Mateo, he's 6 months old and he is such a sensitive guy that any little noise kind of irritates him. He also doesn't like car rides. And so at the end of the day, I don't want him to struggle. I don't want us to struggle. And so again, it is okay to just simplify those traditions. Maybe you may want to do one big like family excursion for the holidays, and that is it. But you are not required to make this grand thing where it can be overwhelming. Understand that you may want to embrace the idea that it is okay to adapt traditions to fit your current season of life. And so taking a look at your holiday list and decide what is crucial this year and what you can let go of as well. Because even though we have all of these ideas, we have all of these plans, sometimes things cannot go the way that we want it to go. Trust me. And so it's okay to let things go. It is okay to simplify what you're trying to do. And again, at the end of the day, your kids are not going to judge you. They're not going to be super mad at you. They're not going to hate you because you didn't get to do these 10 things that you had on your list. It is okay to do 5 out of the 10, or maybe 3 out of the 10, or even 1 out of the 10. And that is fine. No one is going to judge you. No one is going to grade you for being a super mama. At the end of the day, what counts is that you are present and that you are there for your kids. Think about quality versus quantity, right? Thinking about, okay, what is it that I really want to do with my family? And what do I want out of this experience? Is it a new experience? Is it a new tradition that you want to do? Is it a tradition that you never want to do. So assessing that can help you really define what you want for your family, and in understanding that if you are in a specific current season of life, of whether if you are too busy or you're not as busy, it's okay to adapt those traditions. The third tip that I have for you is setting boundaries. It is so important to learn to say no when necessary, and it's okay to decline invitations or requests that will add to your stress. It is okay to say no to events that you are not 100% sure about, or that you're going to have to spend money or figure out the logistics about childcare if this is an adults only event. Now, if you do want to go out with your significant other, then do it. By all means, if you do want to do this, prioritize on that. But if you are in the 10th event and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, you don't have to say yes to everything. It is okay to say no. And also, like during Noche Buena, if in case you are invited to more than one event that day and it's already a long day, like Noche Buena is such a long night, what we have done in the past is that we would typically split that night in two, where we would spend it with my family and then my husband's family, or vice versa. And we used to do that before kids. Now that we have kids, it is kind of impossible to split Noche Buena in half, like with two families. And so what we are doing is to spend Thanksgiving with one side of the family and then Christmas with the other side of the family, or New Year's as well. So that way we don't get to like literally split our entire night, because it can be a lot, especially if you have children. If you are driving and it's in the middle of the night and you don't feel comfortable, it is okay. It's okay to also give yourself permission to set boundaries with your family. I know that it is a struggle for me sometimes to leave early, especially because my family, we are all night owls, but my kids are really tired. And I think we need to honor their bedtime routine, or if you're letting them stay up late, because let's face it, that's how we are as Latinos. For us, Noche Buena, it's an all night thing. But perhaps the next day, if you are invited to go out to the other side of the family or whatever, and you want to sleep in, it is okay. It is okay to sleep in. Establish clear boundaries to maintain a healthy balance. You don't want to have the sense of burnout and fatigue at the end of the day because you're just super stressed out, or you're just like worried to say no, or you don't want to hurt any feelings. At the end of the day, it is based on what you want, what your family wants, and what you and your partner, if you are in a partner relationship, what you both agreed on. Because todos te van a criticar regardless of what you do, of what you decide. And so again, setting boundaries is healthy and it is essential, especially as we are going through this motherhood journey. And so remember that the holidays are about joy, connection, and celebration. You may want to implement these strategies to help you reduce the mental load and make the holiday season more enjoyable for both you and your family. Regardless of what we do this holiday season, know that we still do a bit of magic to our kids. Even though there's this madness going on during the holidays, we are still making our kids happy. And that is the goal. We also don't want our kids to see us be unhappy or under stress or dreading the fact that it is the holiday season. It is so crucial for us to be present because our kids are going to grow up. They're not going to have this magic in them. They're not going to have this innocence in them. And so do what we can and not feel guilty about this, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are okay so that our children can see that. I'm here to recognize all of the hard work that you do this holiday season. I know that it is a lot of work. And again, I didn't realize this until I became a mama. I don't know how everyone does it. I know sometimes I feel like I am just surviving. I am just making it through. And not to mention, this holiday season has been very different for us because we are not living in our home that we want to create, that, we've been working on so hard. But I have to come into this acceptance that, my kids are still enjoying the holidays. My parents allowed us to decorate, to display the kids' Christmas books. They let us put the little nacimiento, the kids' little Christmas tree. And so even though we are not physically in our home, our kids are still getting that sense of love and holiday spirit and cheer that they see. And so as we wrap up today's episode, I hope that these strategies help you navigate the mental load of Christmas, and that these strategies can allow you to create lasting memories with your loved ones. Remember, it's not about having it all together. It's about being present and enjoying the moments that matter the most. So I want you to recognize that and to notice that. And if for some reason things don't go your way, it is okay. No one's going to judge you. No one's going to bash you. No one's going to talk crap about you. Like, it is okay to let go and to not set super high expectations for yourself. And so let me know via DMs or send me an email at podcast@vivalamami.com about what you think. I'm always here. I'm always an open door and open ears for you. I know that the holiday season can be very challenging and it can be a lot of work. I just want to let you know that you are doing such an amazing job being your kids' mommy claus, because at the end of the day, we are. Let's give that credit to ourselves, even though we don't want to mention it to our kids. But it's something that we need to recognize. And at the end of the day, we just want to see our little ones happy and see their smiles and that spark in their eyes. So remember, it's not about having it all together. It's about being present and enjoying the moments that matter the most. As you are preparing for this month, and as you are getting things ready for Navidad, Nochebuena, Hanukkah, whichever holiday you celebrate, know that you are doing a great job. And so I want to thank you for joining me on this conversation and for listening. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in to the Viva la Mami podcast. If you like this episode, make sure to leave a review and write what episode really resonated with you. If you really loved it, share it on social media or with an amiga. As always, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening. Make sure to follow me at Viva la Mami on Instagram or visit vivalamami.com. Please note the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be replaced by your healthcare provider nor taken as professional advice.